Okay, this is going to be a, well, for me anyway, a long section. I'm going to cover brain sections, brain functions, and the cerebral cortex, which is really part of brain sections here. All right, so we're going to cover that, the aspect of parts to the brain, parts and functions of the brain. And there's your brain right there. All right, so we're going to get out of this, and I'm going to go to the smartboard, but I will cover, I will make sure that I cover this with the, oops, don't move that, with the next part. All right, so this is a labeling portion of the brain that you're going to need to do. This is, again, section A2 on parts of the brain. So are we looking at the left side of the brain or the right side of the brain? Think about that for a second. If you didn't guess but knew it was the right side of the brain, you are correct. You are correct, and we'll explain to you how to know both sides of the brain coming up. Let's take a look there at the parts. So as you know, the human brain acts as your integration and coordination system for the body's control, or to control the body systems. All right, it processes sensory information and relays motor responses. All right, and it's organized into three major structures here. All right, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. All right, and many minor structures that we are listing here. So the cerebrum here, which I'm going to actually put in under here. Time. All right. Make it a little bigger. All right. So the whole portion of the brain is the cerebrum. IB really doesn't highlight the whole portion of it. It highlights just the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of tissue of the cerebrum. But I want to make sure that you understand both go with that. The cerebral cortex, the second major portion of the brain below and in the back is your cerebellum, and the third is your brainstem. Okay, the cerebellum is always in your back. So if you find your cerebellum, you'll always know which way the brain is facing. So this half brain, this is a right half brain. All right, we learned earlier in the year, okay, such glands as the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland. We took a look at those. So let's relabel the hypothalamus. Get that right here, and get the pituitary gland right below it. Those are the section 6.6 glands, and the pineal gland, which hasn't come up yet. It will come up here as an offshoot then of a different thing that the brain forms, and that's on this line. So move that. Won't move. It's on this portion right there. This portion right there is the pineal gland. All right. So let's describe the functions of these while we're here, because it would work out. All right, so the cerebrum, which we will actually take a look at as the cerebral cortex of the cerebrum, what it does coming up. So hold on, because we also have to label another diagram with the parts of the cerebrums called the lobes of the cerebrum. All right, but the largest section of the brain is the cerebrum. It's comprised and composed into two cerebral hemispheres. You're looking at the right cerebral hemisphere and four distinct lobes. So we're going to go away from the others for a second. We're going to go to the lobe diagram, and we'll label that, and then we will come back and talk functions. All right, talk functions. There are four major lobes to the cerebrum, four major lobes. But don't neglect to remember, you've got a cerebellum there, and you've got a brainstem here. But of course, as you're looking at the cerebrum here, and you're not looking at the inner portion of it, this is a left portion or hemisphere of the brain. All right, the blue section, the largest section of the brain, is the brain's frontal lobe. The side, where you commonly call your temples, the green is the temporal lobe of the brain. The yellow is the parietal lobe of the brain. And the occipital is the bottom red area there of the brain. All right, so you got to notice, one set of these lobes on both cerebral sides of your brain, both cerebral hemisphere. So let's take a quick look then, and we'll take a look at the cerebrum, which makes up these four lobes. So the frontal lobe that you see there controls things such as motor control, problem solving, speech production on the left side of the brain, within. You'll see that on a different diagram. Memory, attention, basically. Really why you are what you are is because of your frontal lobe. If you ever heard of the term a lobotomy is done to your frontal lobe. It's an operation which often changes a person forever. It used to be done as a way to control those with diagnosed mental illnesses, but that was back in the dark ages of last century. Sorry. The parietal lobe is responsible for touch sensation, tactility, how do you say that word? Spatial navigation, so touch perception, body orientation, sensory discrimination, the parietal lobe. The temporal lobe, for its region, its main function, auditory processing, hearing, language comprehensions. There is a special section called Wernicke's area that you'll see there coming up. Memory and information retrieval in the temporal lobe. And of course, the main function of the occipital lobe is everything sight. The visual cortex is there, visual reception, visual interpretation in the occipital lobe of the brain. So both of these are going to be grabbed off of the screencast when it is posted for you to be able to take this with us. So we highlight. All right, let's go back and take a quick look at what the PowerPoint has to offer so you understand where I was here. All right, section of the brain, take that off of there, label it yourself, part of the diagram notebook last for the year. All right, so you see these sections there. I don't think I discussed pineal gland. Pineal gland is basically responsible for sleep-wake functions. We'll talk a little bit more about that going through, and I believe that we did way back when. All right, so cerebellum, the pons, the medulla, the midbrain, the brainstem, automatic and homeostatic activities, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland. Now notice hypothalamus, pituitary gland. If it was an IB test year, I would say, oh, it's a big deal. It's not as big a deal in this section because it's covered in section 6.6, but there might be the off chance of a question here, so be aware of that. All right. All right, so there you can see the cerebral cortex. Let's go bring that up here. The whole cortex up here. The frontal lobe, again, notice you've got your primary motor cortex within the within the functions there. All right, motor cortex here, the premotor cortex in the frontal lobe, and the pink in the parietal lobe, frontal lobe. A little bit of the outline of the cortex now. Notice it is very large in humans. All right, extensive folding in the cerebrum called convolution, which allow for greater surface area for nerve impulses. All right, highly developed. We'll come back to that. All right, major lobes we talked about there. You can see the four of them. All four of them are testable portion there. All right, and identification there. So as far as this is concerned, again, parts of the brain from a diagram or a scan of the brain even, or a photograph of the brain. Either way, you get that there. All right, so that would, I think, conclude this section of